Howdy, friends and family. Thanks so much for joining me. This is week 7, day 1, and we are talking about knowing God in the series I'm doing with Christ Memorial Lutheran Church. And this week we are talking about how the Lord heals, whereas last week we talked about how the Lord provides. So first I want to look at where sickness comes from, because if God's going to heal us, he has to have something to heal. So we're going to read Psalm 38, verses 1 through 5, which say, "O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your wrath. For your arrows have pierced me, and your hand has come down upon me. Because of your wrath there is no health in my body. My bones have no soundness because of my sin. My guilt has overwhelmed me like a burden too heavy to bear. My wounds fester and are loathsome because of my sinful folly." So, there are 2 causes of sickness that I would like to discuss. The first one is sin, and we see this mentioned in verses 3 and 5, where David describes that his sickness has actually been caused by his sin. We know that when God created the universe, he created everything perfect and looked at it and said it was good. And it was not until we started sinning that death and sickness entered the world. We also see in 1 Chronicles 21 how when David sinned, it affected the entire Israelite population. So sickness can be caused by our individual sin, but also by the sins of those around us. That can cause our sickness. The second place sickness can come from is actually God. God sometimes causes sickness to happen, but he usually does it for his glory or to bring people to faith in him, whether he's bringing them back to him or bringing them to him for the first time. So if we look at John 9, we see Jesus and he meets a blind man and his disciples ask him who sinned, this man or his parents, to cause his blindness. And Jesus says, it's not caused by this man or his parents. This man is blind so that God may gain the glory. So sometimes God does cause sickness or allow it to continue so that his glory can be shown to others. Now, this is pretty sad. We have ourselves causing sickness through our sin, other people causing sickness, God sometimes even causing sickness. That's really sad. But despite this, there is hope because God heals. God is Jehovah Rapha, or Yahweh Rapha. Remember last week we talked about how Yahweh means I am. And this is talking about God and how he and these aspects that this name is tied to are eternal and he's never changing. And Rapha means to heal or to restore. And we're going to be looking at that more this week on day 3 and day 5, this healing and restoring. But that is who God is. God is a healer. He heals us. That is what he did with Jesus on the cross. So we have hope in this very sick world because God heals, but we also have hope because God will use all things for our good. It says in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." So whatever sickness someone has, we know that God will use it for the good of those who love him. God is going to use it for good. Whether it was caused by ourselves or by someone else, we know that God will use it for good. So despite the fact that we cause our own sickness, and God sometimes even causes sickness, we have hope because God also heals. God is Yahweh Rapha. He is your healer. So remember that this week. If you're looking for a verse to memorize, Revelation 21, 3-4 is a great one to look into. It doesn't specifically speak of healing, but we'll talk about it a little bit on Wednesday and see how it relates. It is a beautiful verse talking about eternal healing. So thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.